Today's webinar is titled The Path Less Traveled, and our presenter is alumna Sharitta Gross-Smith, the Assistant Director of Programmatic Initiatives and Student Development within RIT's Multicultural Center for Academic Success. A former adjunct professor at Monroe Community College here in Rochester, teaching developmental reading and writing, Sharitta also taught one-year courses at RIT and coordinated and facilitated career development workshops within the Rochester community and the surrounding areas. A 2014 Rochester Business Journal Top 40 Under 40 inductee, Sharitta believes in the spirit of servanthood and serves as a volunteer in various organizations in Rochester. Currently, she is a volunteer advisor with United Way's Meeting Basic Needs Committee, member of WDKX's Women for Women Programming Committee, and serves as a mentor in 2 programs within RIT, I'm First, aimed at first-generation college students and determined individuals victoriously achieving success, also known as DIVAs. Part of her professional objective is to uplift, educate, and encourage young people. Currently, Sharitta is a doctoral candidate in St. John Fisher's Doctorate of Education, Executive Leadership, with an anticipation completion date of fall 2018. Sharitta holds an advanced certificate in project management from RIT, a master's in liberal arts with a concentration in public administration from SUNY Brockport, and she received a bachelor's in English with a minor in Africana Studies from State University of New York at Albany. We are lucky to have Sharitta with us today. Welcome and thank you for being here. Let's get this webinar going.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm going to be sharing with you today some excerpts from 2 of my favorite books centered around leadership. One is called The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz. The other is called The Leadership Challenge, and that one is by James Kuznis, and Barry Posner. I'm also going to integrate some of my personal experiences, and I'm hopeful that this will lead to many of you feeling as though you have some new tools and or strategies to help you to move forward professionally. Balancing stress and recovery is critical, not just in competitive sports, but also in managing energy in all facets of our lives. When we expend energy, we also draw down on our reservoir. When we recover energy, we fill it back up. Too much energy expenditure without sufficient recovery eventually leads to burnout and breakdown. Overuse it and lose it. Too much recovery without sufficient stress leads to atrophy and weakness. Use it or lose it. Just think about an arm placed in a cast for an extended period of time in order to protect it from the stress to which it is ordinarily subjected. In a very short time, the muscles of the arm begin to atrophy from disuse. The benefits of a sustained fitness program decrease significantly after just 1 week of inactivity and disappear altogether in as few as 4 weeks. The same process occurs emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Emotional depth and resilience depend on active engagement with others and with our own feelings. Mental acuity diminishes in the absence of ongoing intellectual challenge. Spiritual energy capacity depends on regularly visiting our deepest values and holding ourselves accountable in our behavior. Full engagement requires cultivating a dynamic balance between the expenditure of energy, stress, and the renewal of energy, recovery, in all dimensions. That particular excerpt came from The Power of Full Engagement, and I share that with you because often, which is why this workshop was developed, when you're in a situation that you have a work environment that might be volatile, or you feel as though you're not valued as an employee, or there's no growth opportunity, it can really create an imbalance. And so what I want to do, again, is to create, hopefully, some items or strategies that you can implement to help with that item. So the first thing that I would suggest that you do is assess. When looking at your work environment, if it is one indeed that is stressful and that is not really properly utilizing your skill set and abilities, sometimes there's a fight or flight feeling where either you feel like the first thing that you should do is leave. And then for some people, they feel that they want to fight. And sometimes that can come out negatively in how you are presenting yourself to your colleagues or to your leadership. And so what I would say, the first thing that you want to do is to assess your situation. It's easy to declare what you feel that you deserve in a work environment, but negotiating your skill set really requires a self-assessment. So take an inventory of yourself, including your professional abilities, the work hierarchy, and the organizational chart to determine your growth. This would also be inclusive of identifying any areas of improvement and strategies to address them. For example, if public speaking is an issue for you, consider something like Toastmasters, or working with someone who specializes in public speaking. Or if you have access to professional development resources, take a class to strengthen that area. I also would suggest that if you feel that there's not enough resource that's available for you to pay for a class, always think about people that are in your work environment that may also have that skill set that you're seeking. For example, here at RIT, we have several people that actually are great in public speaking. Dr. Keith Jenkins being one of them. He actually is the interim person overseeing the Division for Diversity and Inclusion. So think about the resources that you have within your environment before seeking elsewhere or looking to pay for resources that may be right within your reach. I want to pause for a moment and just say that if you do have anything that you want to ask, we want this process to be interactive. So do feel free to actually enter any of the questions that you have in the chat or dialog box, and I'll try to answer them as they come in. The next thing that I want to suggest that you do is that you align yourself with opportunities. There are several ways to do this. One would be reading and engaging in activities that relate to your current and desired field. So it can be difficult if you're working full-time and you have exterior responsibilities, but if you really want to make yourself indispensable to your organization and you're trying to align yourself with a leadership or a different role than what you're currently in, it's good to build that knowledge base by reading and keeping your hand on the pulse of what's going on in your industry. In some regards, it might even be helpful in making yourself an industry expert. So for example, if you're in higher education, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE, might be good for you to read. If you're looking at the field of counseling, then you might want to look at other publications that are aligned with that. If you're looking at human resources as your sector, then SHRM and some of its publications might also be something that you want to consider. Another way to align yourself is by looking at your network. Many say that your network is your net worth. So you want to look at things like your LinkedIn profile, who actually knows that you're looking for employment outside of your internal network. It is really important that you do have those conversations, which we're going to talk about shortly, with those in leadership or persons that you feel might be able to help you to grow professionally. But make sure that you are aligning yourself with the appropriate persons that not only can help you to grow, but can also increase your knowledge base as a professional. When it comes to challenges, challenge is really the opportunity for greatness. People do their best when there's a chance to change the way things are. Maintaining the status quo simply breeds mediocrity. Leaders seek and accept challenging opportunities to test their abilities. They motivate others as well to exceed their self-perceived limits. They seize initiative and make something meaningful happen. Leaders treat every assignment as an adventure. Most innovations do not come from leaders. They come from the people closest to the work. They also come from outside. Exemplary leaders look for good ideas everywhere. They promote external communication. They listen, take advice, and learn. Progress is not made in giant leaps. It's made incrementally. Exemplary leaders move forward in small steps with little victories. They turn adversity into advantage, setbacks into successes. They persevere with grit and determination. Leaders venture out. They test and they take risks with bold ideas. And because risk-taking involves mistakes and failure, leaders accept the inevitable disappointments and treat them as opportunities for learning and growth. And that excerpt was taken from Kouzes and Posner. The reason that I shared that with you is because the ask portion of looking at the path less traveled and really kind of evolving professionally in a situation that might be a little uncomfortable, asking for what you need and not what you want can be a little bit uncomfortable in the sense that it depends on what kind of leadership you're dealing with. So first and foremost, you do need to ask yourself, what kind of leader are you working with? And really look at managing from the bottom up. Think about their communication style, think about their work style, and what really drives an individual. So for example, If that individual is a numbers person and they really like to look at metrics and see how where you are and where you'd like to be impacts your performance, and how if you were allowed to go into another role or to be able to take on some different tasks, then you might want to produce a report or something of that nature to really help that individual to understand where you're coming from and what you bring to the table and how your role evolving would be of benefit not just to you but to the organization. I do want to step back a moment and again reiterate that when you're doing this ask, you want to ask for what you need, not what you want. You may want an office with a window, but what you need is an opportunity to grow and to stretch professionally. What you want may be a raise fiscally, but what you might need in order to help you in the long run is to actually take on supervisory and budgetary abilities so that you can go into leadership. Those are two things that a lot of people look for when they're seeking to hire somebody in leadership, that being the ability to manage a budget and to supervise others. So there's a difference, and be prepared to differentiate the two. The other thing you want to keep in mind if you are feeling nervous and have the jitters about talking to leadership about things that you feel might bear from, how could I put this, that could positively be impacted by a change, you want to think about the fact that it's unfair to not let leadership know of your aspirations, as they cannot see you as an option when doing succession planning or thinking about developing certain areas of your department. So make sure that you are comfortable and ready to do the ask before you go into the room, but if nothing else, ask. Don't ever back down from advocating for yourself professionally, because nobody will do that better than you. The next thing that you want to do is to act upon your plan. So when you're thinking about acting on your plan, you want to take everything into consideration. You want to take into consideration your environment, if there's anything that's going to be impacted, such as retirement or your career trajectory, and also whether or not you have actually exhausted all of your resources. When you think about that in totality, then you can act properly on what your plan is going to be and how you're going to address things. Before I go any further, are there any questions that have come through?
Well, we do have one, and it speaks to, let's say, if you're trying to identify what opportunities might be there, how would you, from a leadership perspective, do you have some advice on perhaps seeking out perhaps other mentors kind of before approaching your management? Because you mentioned expressing your intentions for further growth, but does it make sense to seek out a mentor to help you get there? And if so, how?
I definitely think that it's good to seek out mentors. The way that I would go about doing that is to first observe. You want to observe the individual or individuals, because it's great to have more than one mentor, since people have so many layers to them and so many different abilities. I personally have several mentors. There are some that help me with my future trajectory. There are some that help me with the here and now. And there are also others that might help me with my growth as a scholar in the making. As you mentioned earlier, I'm doing my doctoral program at Fisher. So I would suggest perhaps observing that individual and seeing how they build rapport and how they carry out their agenda professionally, because you want to select somebody that's not only going to align with who you are and what you're seeking to do, but somebody that's going to push you. Having a yes man or yes woman in your corner is not necessarily what you would want if you're looking for a mentor. You want some growth to happen, and growth, much like when a baby is cutting teeth, can be really uncomfortable, but it's a necessity, because as again with the baby, if the teeth don't come through, you can't really enjoy solid foods. And so you want to think about the same thing when it comes to choosing a mentor. You also want to choose somebody who's professional and who can handle things confidentially, because there might be some things that you share with an individual that you don't want to have broadcast to other persons in your organization, or for that matter in the community. There's nothing wrong with looking to your peers who might have mentors and seeing what recommendations they might have. And keep in mind, too, that popular doesn't always mean that it's better. As in, if the person is really popular in the community, doesn't mean that's the person for you. You want to really think about what it is that you want to get out of that mentoring relationship. What is it that you're seeking to learn, and what skill set does that person have that you're looking to also glean so that you can align yourself with the proper resources and really have a reciprocal relationship with that person as well.
Great, thank you. One more question before you move on. Maria, this goes back, has a question. It goes back to your commentary around needs versus wants.
Mm-hmm.
So her question has to do, well, if I don't have the skills that I might need and they're not being offered, how do I seek them out? How do I go ask for them? Who do I ask?
One of the things that I found to be helpful in my career path was volunteerism. We sometimes shun away from that, but volunteering is still work. They will work you as though you are in a full-time job situation. So I once was in the situation as this person who just submitted a question where there wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to lead or to supervise or to manage budgets. And so by way of being a member of the YWCA board and having the opportunity to lead the committee in organizing their main fundraiser, the Empowering Women Luncheon, I was able to gain experience with not only leading a team of people, but supervising and overseeing a major event and trying to actually build rapport in the community and build awareness. I was also able to apply the whole perspective of emotional intelligence and really looking at the women that were on the committee and leveraging their strengths. So there was one person that was really good in marketing and had a lot of ties to that community. So I assigned that person to the task of really making sure that people in that community were aware of what we were trying to do, and sponsorship. Another individual had a lot of social media experience, and so they created our hashtag. So what I would say is that if there's any volunteering that you can do that might facilitate you obtaining that leadership ability, and again, I understand that taking on volunteering is time-consuming, or it can be, but sometimes it might be right here, you know, in your own backyard, depending on where you work, where you might be able to do some of that via volunteerism. So think about what you can do that might align with both your objectives as well as your time frame. The other thing that I found for myself when it came to leadership development and really gleaning some of the skills that I wanted, I'm highly interested in curriculum development. And so I had to actually give up teaching to pursue my doctorate. And so I had to think about, well, where can I get those or continue to cultivate that skill set? So I started looking around, and at RIT we have YearOne courses. So, you know, I was able to get involved in designing and executing curriculum with that program. So if you can't find anything within your current environment, then I would say to look at your community and how you can become more involved in that and possibly obtain more leadership abilities that way.
Thank you.
So leaders at all levels work outside their job descriptions and see opportunities where others don't. They don't wait for permission or instructions before jumping in. You make something happen when you notice what isn't working, create a solution for the problem, gain buy-in from constituents, and implement the desired outcome. So once you come up with your plan, you want to work your plan and plan to work. This is inclusive of recognizing that perhaps parting ways with your current environment is the best route to take, and that's okay. So if that ends up being the case, what I want to talk to you about is what exactly do you do and how should you handle that? One of the things that I suggest is that you consider stepping into the gray, and this is an identification of transferable skills. So, for example, my career counseling transferred into an ability to do the same thing with traditional college students and alumni. I actually used to work at Rochester Works, and I'd never set foot into the college arena until RIT. So I had to really work hard at looking at my transferable skills, identifying them, but also being able to relay them in writing, and I'll show you an example of that shortly. But you do have to stretch yourself and your purview beyond what your job description has stated that you do. So think about the things that you do and think about what you like to do and how those two align. One of the items that I think is really great in helping you to research desired career paths is something called ONET. So I'm going to try to do, and please pardon me if there's any technical difficulties, I'm going to try to switch over to something called ONET and demonstrate it quickly for you.
Bear with us.
Okay, so this is ONET. This is a free resource, and it's a multifaceted resource. If I put in the occupation quick search, I'm just going to put in, just for the sake of an example, accountant. What this will do is it'll bring up several different possible job titles. We're going to click the first one, and it's actually the most relevant one. The first 1 to 3 are usually the most relevant to what you put into the search box. If you're having some difficulty in verbalizing your transferable skills or beefing up your resume, ONET is great for this particular type of task. So in this area here, where it says task, these are all the things that a person would do if they were an accountant. And these are things you can actually use in your resume. What you'll notice is that they're starting with action words like prepare, report, establish, develop, compute. So look at your resume and make sure that it's actually relaying the skills that are relevant to the field and or to the job that you're applying for. What I also think is important to look at is, say if you are in accounting already and you really want to do something different, there's some related occupations that you may want to explore, like being an auditor, a budget analyst, or a credit analyst. So in addition to helping you with revising your resume or kind of beefing it up a little bit, ONET can also help you in regards to looking at related occupations. It can also help you with salary negotiation. If you look at the bottom here, you can see the median wages, and if you want to look at a state, if you're considering relocating, you can actually click in this box here, and you can select a state, and it will take you to the salary information for that particular state. So this really allows you to do some career exploration, and it will also help you in regards to looking at how much education is required. I'm going to go back up so I can show you that piece as well. So it tells you what technology skills you'll need, the knowledge you need to have, the skills, abilities, etc. And down here it will tell you the kind of training that you need, as well as the education that you would need. So sometimes going back to school is not the answer. Sometimes it might just be an advanced certificate that you might need, or it could just be doing some other activities that might increase your knowledge base. Thank you for your patience as we're working through the technical issues. The other thing that you can do to help with identifying your transferable skills is to conduct informational interviews. An informational interview is really an opportunity to get to know an individual who could become a mentor, as well as understanding what's required in that career field and whether or not it's feasible for you. Believe it or not, at one point in my career, I thought I wanted to go into human resource management. And what I did is I met with a few people that were in that field. One particular person stood out to me that I met with at Xerox. And what I recognized in speaking with him is that becoming an HR person was not feasible for me. I would have to go back to school and obtain a master's degree in human resource management, not to mention that the HR field in Rochester is really tight. They do a lot of outsourcing, so you might have a place that's like an ADP that does payroll, and they also outsource other tasks as well. So through that informational meeting, I was able to determine that that was not a career path for me, but that I might want to find a job that has some human resource-like functions. The other thing that you want to do is to think about your standard part items. I recently was reading an article that talked about cover letters and how they're becoming obsolete and how employers are looking for people to be a little bit more creative when it comes to how they're marketing themselves. So I want to share with you a couple things that you can do to help yourself stand apart. This is what's called a T-style cover letter. And it's called a T-style simply because of the chart here that you see that creates a T. When you're filling out the T-style cover letter, you want to understand that you're not taking every single job descriptor and putting your experience next to it. You want to pull out those key areas that you think are going to be really pertinent to that employer. Again, this is a good opportunity for you to showcase your transferable skills, whether it's going from one environment to the next, as I did with counseling at Rochester Works and being able to do career counseling at RIT, or if you spent a bulk of your time at one organization and now you're looking to transfer it over. I'll use my dad, for example. He's now retired, but he spent well over 30 years at Kodak in various job functions. So someone like him would benefit from being able to break up his work experiences in a T-style cover letter, because he'll be able to demonstrate that although his work experience was predominantly at one place, he has a variety of skill sets, and they'll be able to better see the layers of his professional background and how he could contribute to their organization. And this, again, this is one-page document. It should not be any longer than one page, because any more than that, you'll lose the employer, and then that can be problematic. And again, your cover letter is an introduction to the opportunity that you're applying for. It should not be just a direct repeat of your resume. Infographics are another way to actually market yourself to prospective employers. This is an infographic resume. So imagine that you're doing a presentation and you want to give the employer or prospective employer a takeaway. This is a great way to do that. Also, if you are looking at doing multiple interviews within a day, if it's a half-day interview or a full day, for example, and you're meeting with multiple people, some of whom may not be in your actual presentation if you have to give one, this might be a really nice document to actually create and give to an employer. It's a great way and a creative way of putting out there your skill set and giving them a tangible takeaway to remember you as a candidate. Here's another way that you can do an infographic. So the first one that I showed you was a resume infographic, but this one is just a regular one. So this is the kind of template that you might use if you want to really highlight your certain skill sets that are relevant to the job. There are several different websites. The one that I recommend is Graphili, and you can create an infographic and download it for $5, and then you can take it to like your local office max and have them to copy it off in color and cut them for you, and it's really inexpensive that way. If a website is asking that you pay $20 or more to download the infographic, look for some other ones. One good way to do this, to identify one that might be of interest to you as far as an infographic site, is just to Google free infographics, and several will come up for you. So your view of events contributes to your ability to cope with change and stress. For you to take that first step, to start that new project, to initiate improvement, you have to believe that you can influence the outcome of the situation. You have to be curious about whatever is going down, and you have to look for learning every step of the way. With a hearty attitude, you can transform stressful events into positive opportunities for growth and renewal. What's more, you can help those that are within your team to feel the same way. What I want to do is go into a case study that I received. Before I do that, are there any other questions that have been received?
Oh, what is the, yes, Mary Ellen wants to know, can you unhighlight that? I can't read it. What is the name of the infographic website that you just recommended?
It is Graphili. Let's see if I can do this for you.
So we will, while Sharitta's looking that one up on the web, we will get all these web links and the book titles that Sharitta has referenced, and we will put them in the email we send you with the link to the recording. So no worries, we will make sure we get that all out to you within the week as soon as we get the recording transcript back.
So you can see there's several here. There's Vintage.com, there's PictoChart, and then there's also there's Graphili, but I'm having some difficulty in bringing it up. Let's see here. Let me just try one more thing before we move forward. There we go. Genially. So it's free, so how they get you is they'll have you to create it, and then when you want to download it, that's when you end up having to pay. With this particular website, you can download it two ways, and I'd recommend that you do both, PDF and JPEG, because that will allow you, if you wanted to embed it in a presentation, you can embed the PDF, and if you want to, and also with the JPEG, you can do the same thing. So for versatility's sake, I would definitely suggest downloading it as a JPEG and as a PDF and saving it. But this is a really inexpensive way to really make your mark and to do something a little bit different.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mary Ellen said, perfect, thank you very much.
Not a problem. So putting together this presentation, which I do hope was helpful, I realize that it's not easy to take an assessment of your work environment to really decide, do I want to stay here or do I want to leave? What are my options? Sometimes the easier thing might be to leave the environment. But I really want you to be encouraged and think about how much it takes to really be successful. It is easier to go into flight mode instead of fight mode, but nobody, again, will advocate for your professional growth the way that you will. So I caution you to think through everything step by step in regards to what you want to do in regards to your trajectory. When you're building your network, believe it or not, where you currently are is part of your network. So you don't want to burn bridges. That means keeping your performance up to standard no matter what you might be feeling internally. That means still having a collaborative spirit when you may not really feel like talking to anybody because you're just so frustrated. Your work speaks for you, so what you have to do is to just kind of take baby steps when and if you can. Working a full-time job and trying to find a job at the same time can be quite difficult. Even though it's been said it's easier to find a job when you have a job. So start small if you need to. Maybe you could start by looking at your LinkedIn profile and see how see what gaps you might have in regards to your LinkedIn profile. And if you're not sure of what your LinkedIn profile should look like, find somebody that you consider to be a mentor or someone who you trust, or you can just look at mine if you want to. Mine is not the only or the best way to do it. My LinkedIn profile is my full name, Sharitta F. Gross-Smith. But maybe start small with just looking at LinkedIn and looking at your profile. Or maybe start by asking that person that you've admired from afar as far as how they've executed their career to be your mentor or to give you some tips on how they got to where they are. But whatever you do, take a step forward. We have a case study. I have an individual here who has a bachelor's in journalism, an advanced certificate in strategic HR management, and they were very smart and became a member of SHRM, which is one of the main HR networking groups, and it's a national organization actually. They also are they have a heavy recruitment background, and they're currently in an HR role. They've been there for 4 years, and they would have to complete a master's in HR to be an executive director. They want to see how they can develop within or transition out of their organization, but here's the hitch for this person. If they were to leave their organization, they would lose retirement, and they have 6 years before they get vested. And they're open to getting a master's degree, but their current executive director was just reappointed for 5 years, so even if they got their master's degree, it still wouldn't work out for them in regards to getting promoted. This is a very tough case study, and I thank the individual who sent it in for doing so. As promised, I will keep it anonymous, and I'm going to give some suggestions. The first thing that I would suggest is thinking about the loss as in the retirement that they would lose by going into another organization, and looking at that in comparison to going into another position. If you stay where you are and you're feeling underutilized and perhaps unhappy even, how is that going to impact your work performance as far as the long haul? If you're finding that you're increasingly becoming unhappy, you have to weigh the pros and cons of what's going to be in your best interest. So sometimes you have to take a loss to get a gain. Looking at this person's background, again, it's heavily steeped in technical recruitment, and they also have their degree in communication. One of the suggestions that I have might be to relieve some pressure. So you know how if somebody has fluid on the knee from many years of being in sports, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor performs this procedure where they take some of the fluid off to relieve the pressure. So maybe one of the ways to relieve the pressure in this situation, when you don't really see any way that you can actually excel or move upward professionally, is to take on something that might bring some gratification to you, as well as building your skill set. One of the things that I found to be helpful is to really make room for your growth. So, for example, one of the things I had to do is think about, okay, how much time do I really want to spend on a job search versus building my skill set? Sometimes it's difficult to do both at one time, but that's a sacrifice that you're going to have to make to develop professionally. So, again, as I said, I'm going to share some personal experiences. One of the things that I did for about maybe 6 or 7 years is I worked at RIT full-time and I taught full-time. Teaching brings about a different type of gratification for me, and it allows me to utilize and build upon a skill set that I didn't necessarily feel that I was able to do at RIT, not because I didn't like my job here, because I love the institution, and actually this year is my 10th year at RIT, but there was something that was missing for me, and there was a different level of interaction that I wasn't able to have. And so I ended up actually teaching at Monroe Community College as well as working at RIT. That allowed me to have a toe in both ponds, both a private institution as well as a community college. So what I would suggest to this individual is that perhaps she thinks about teaching someone her skill set, or going into contractual consulting, because the experience that this individual has expands. I'm just looking at their resume that they were so kind to send me. They started in the field of recruitment in 2007 through current. So they have a wealth of knowledge to where they could very well go to a community college and teach someone, or they could go into their own consulting, build a consulting firm and get a DBA easily. I don't think that DBA only costs, it's a minimal cost. I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it's a minimal cost for what I think could be infinite gain. This individual also shared with me that they have talked to their leadership, but it has not really resulted in any movement. So that leads me to believe that they would have to probably do what one of my mentors has called having to go to grow. And that can sometimes be a disappointing situation to be in, because this individual seems to really love and enjoy their work, but they're not really finding any opportunity to grow. So if it's felt that growing where you are is not feasible, either A, you can relieve the pressure by doing something like consulting, or maybe teaching somebody your skill set, both of which would generate income and growth for you, or you could look at leaving the organization altogether and taking a loss as a result to the retirement. Again, sometimes you have to sustain a loss in order to get a gain, but it's really a personal choice on what's really most important to you and to your family if that's a relevant situation. Thank you again to that individual for submitting your case study, and you do have my email address, so if you'd like to discuss it further, I'm more than happy to do that. Do we have any other questions that I can answer?
One came in from Chris. If you're not a planner, you talked about building your your career path, your career plan, how to determine what the needs and wants. So are there resources out there to help assess in order to create that kind of plan and path forward?
Well, this is where I think a good mentor could come into play, and that individual can really help you with shaping what you want to do and where you want to go. If you really want to look at some books that might be helpful, I again recommend The Power of Full Engagement. That's another good book. They have some worksheets that are in the back of the book, and again, this is The Power of Full Engagement, Managing Energy, Not Time, is the Key to High Performance and Personal Renewal by Jim Lower and Tony Schwartz. And they have a vision worksheet in here. They have an action and development plan. A lot of this deals with managing your energy, but there might be some items that are even more so relevant to professional development. And I have some other texts that I will send on to Cindy that might be helpful to all of you in regards to developing a plan. But I think first and foremost, finding some texts to help you to develop professionally would be good. But I think having a mentor to help guide you, that's part of what a mentor can do, is help you with looking at your trajectory and looking at your time frame. What I do is something very simple. I'm a very task-oriented person, so what I tend to do is I make lists, and so as each task is accomplished, I just simply cross it off. So maybe by creating a chart for yourself, which is simple enough to do, right, where you list out your tasks and what the resources are that are going to be needed for that task and your timeline, what you can do is have a visual aid that will also help you to have a sense of accomplishment as you check off each task. So you say you're not good at planning, but maybe if you just create a chart and just dump everything in there, and then you can really see visually what it is that you need to do that might be helpful. Because sometimes when people say that they're not good at planning, it's because they have so many tasks that it feels overwhelming. But if you actually take the time to look at them and narrow down where you are, that can be very helpful in helping you to see, oh, I really don't have that much to do, or I can actually knock these 2 tasks out right now during my lunch break. So being able to visualize it, I think, is helpful. If you have a whiteboard also, that might be helpful. I know a lot of people that use their whiteboard in their office to help them with visualizing their tasks, and you kind of divide them up into different categories to assist with planning and execution. So those are some of the suggestions that I would have, but I will make sure that I forward the different texts that might be helpful to you.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier about a different way to present yourself through a cover letter. Are there places on the internet or other resources that would help a person put that kind of different cover letter together? This particular individual is writing that she's mid-career, so she's been doing it, the standard way. So learning how to break out and do it a little more creatively and differently, she's looking for some additional help in how to do that.
Well, if you are an RIT alumna, then what you might want to do is utilize our Office of Career Services and Cooperative Education. At RIT, you are served for life as an alum. So you can actually meet and consult with the individual that's assigned to your former major. Additionally, the website for that office is chock full of different resources as it relates to cover letters and marketing yourself. So that might be a good step if you are an RIT alumna to have a discussion with the person that's assigned to your major. The other thing, if you're not an RIT alumna and you're looking for additional assistance, Rochester Works is a great community resource if you're in the Rochester area, but every organization or every city and or state has a place that's similar to Rochester Works. It might be called the Department of Labor, but they do have persons that are there that can help you with career exploration and job seeking. Of course, the third option would be to maybe do a Google search for creative cover letters and whatnot, but what's really important, I think, in this case, because it's very much situational, a T-style cover letter is not going to work for every employer. So this is where your network comes into play, because they can give you an insider's view to what an employer may want to see. Some employers don't even want a cover letter. Some may want a cover letter but not specify it. I actually encountered that in a job that I had where I was applying, and I was networking with the people that were in that particular company, and one of them pulled me aside and said, I know the job description doesn't say that they want a cover letter, but they really do, and if you don't include it, they won't look at your application. So again, this is where your network becomes your net worth, and you want to make sure that you're thinking about this situationally, because every cover letter is not going to work for every situation.
Thank you. That's helpful. You've shared some of your personal experiences, Sharitta. So for you and in your career, how have you defined job satisfaction?
The moment that I stop growing, that's where the satisfaction starts to go away. I love a good challenge. Doesn't mean that I want every moment to be challenging, but I think that if you're not given opportunities to grow, if you're not given opportunities that will cause you to think critically, and really given that space, that safe space, which is important, right? If you have a situation where you can't really speak to your leadership and be honest and transparent about who you are, where you see yourself going, and what you need to get there, then that situation, in my opinion, something like that would make a situation really difficult for me, I think, to thrive in regards to job satisfaction. So I think job satisfaction for me is inclusive of having that safe space to be oneself professionally, where you can speak to your leadership transparently about who you are, who you'd like to become, and even give suggestions on how you think that your organization could stand to evolve or develop. I think job satisfaction is more than just something that's fiscal. It's something that goes beyond just how much you get paid. I think it also, for me, deals with the community impact. Since I'm very big on servanthood and serving the Rochester community, I like to see what my organization is doing for the community, which is part of what makes RH such a wonderful institution, from the Rochester City Scholars to the other partnerships that we have, where we're helping young people in grades K through 12 on a year-round basis. So those are some of the things I think that would really, I would be able to define job satisfaction as those things that would stretch me and help me to grow. But also, I think job satisfaction would have to be inclusive of fun. Higher education is a tough business, and students are always evolving, so that means you have to evolve as well as a professional in the higher ed sector. So job satisfaction to me would also include being able to kind of let go of the difficulty that we sometimes find in just letting our hair down, because we're always so on the go and multitasking. I hope I answered the question, but if not, feel free to put another one in the dialogue box as a follow-up.
Thank you. I'm sure they will. What if you're stymied, stuck, been in a position for a long time, you know you probably need to make a move, but you're pretty risk-averse? What are some thoughts on how someone might jumpstart that kind of process to get out of, how we like to use the term, our own way? How do we overcome inertia?
I think one of the things that you can do is to really take an accountability, or have some accountability to yourself for your emotions. Stuffing down your emotions and trying to pretend as though you're not being impacted by what's going on in your work environment, to me, that's one of the worst things that you can do. It's important to manage your emotions before they manage you. And again, this is where I think having a mentor might come into play, because sometimes we have to do some introspective work. It could be you that needs to change, and not your leadership. And realistically, people are who they're going to be. And so it's very difficult to change someone else, whether we want to admit that or not. So I would say to kind of jumpstart it, as I said before, is to start small. So it could be your LinkedIn profile and looking at how you're marketing yourself to prospective employers. It could be looking at the areas in which you volunteer and seeing if there are other opportunities for growth there, for leadership, or other things that you're looking to obtain professionally. I think that starting small is really important. And then the other thing, too, that can help a person to jumpstart is looking at different opportunities. There's a website called us.jobs that is really helpful in regards to securing full-time employment opportunities. And you can actually create a search agent, and you can create as many as you like, actually. I'm suggesting this because sometimes just looking at what opportunities are available, looking at the job description, looking at what's required will give you a more realistic picture of what's possible for you in this moment with your given skill set and education versus what's not. And then I would caution you to focus on what you have to offer the employer and what you can do professionally instead of focusing on what you don't have. Because again, going back to school is not always the answer. Sometimes it's just a matter of reworking your current skill set or having a critical conversation with your leadership that you haven't had yet. So looking at jobs and seeing what they require and how it aligns with your skill set, as well as creating some search agents that will actually send you an email, it'll be like a little ping, where it'll tell you as often as you select. You can do either every 2, 4, or 6 days, or every day. It'll send you an email to say, hey, there's some jobs in this particular job function that you've selected. So it'll kind of, I think, hopefully, if you're having some issues moving forward, it'll give you some ideas of what's out there.
Great. One alum has written in that what if you're an introvert and putting yourself out there as you might want to find a mentor or approach your leadership about your current job situation in terms of the wants and needs you talked about earlier. How does someone who is just too afraid to put themselves out there begin to overcome those obstacles and take, as you referenced, some initial, small steps toward bigger gains?
That kind of individual, I would say, may benefit from some coaching, professional coaching. That's a real situation, and I completely understand where someone might be a little uncomfortable if you are really shy, as you just described. But you have to also ask yourself, is the risk worth more than the reward? If you don't step out and take at least one baby step, you're going to be stuck. And nobody can take those steps for you. So really, I think it does require one to kind of get out of their own way, which I think was mentioned earlier. And sometimes it takes a series of conversations with a career coach or with a mentor. And I'm not suggesting paying someone to do these things because, again, you could go to Rochester Works and talk to someone if you're in the Rochester area about your career development, and it's underneath the category, I would say, of career exploration. Or if you graduated from RIT, you can also meet with your assigned person in the Office of Career Services and Cooperative Education or any other college. I don't know the logistics of every single college, but more often than not, they do have services that they will offer to their alumni populations. So I would say that it's really helpful to take some baby steps, and if you're feeling that constricted by shyness or feeling as though you can't really approach your leadership for whatever reason, then you may want to have a series of conversations with a mentor or a career coach to help you to find means and ways of quieting that voice within your head that's, having you to feel so anxious. Because the reality is you're going to have to take those steps. But you definitely want to be comfortable, you want to be able to articulate what you want, and you need to be able to stand up for yourself, but without being overly aggressive or unprofessional about it, because that doesn't get anybody anywhere by any stretch.
Okay. One last question before we sign off. This comes from Karen. She believes that she's ready to make that move from individual contributor to someone in a true leadership role. So what do you believe are the, top qualities that employers are looking for in their managers, that sort of first level of leadership?
I think that people are looking for flexibility and adaptability. In an economy where we always, have to do more with less, employers want to see somebody who can lead and make the most of the resources that they've been given, but also have the ability to continue to motivate their team in times that might be a little bit difficult. So I think two of the things that employers look for in leaders, is that what you're asking? Yep. Is adaptability and flexibility, but also someone who is an active listener and someone who also has the ability to not ask anything of their team that they would not be willing to do themselves. A good leader, again, this is my perspective, is someone who actually could step in and do any of the tasks that any of their people can do. They may not do it as well because nobody can, know every single intricate thing of what their team does, but the willingness to do that. And the knowledge base of really having some idea of what their team does, I think is really important because anything could happen at any given time. Someone could go out for surgery. Someone could find a different opportunity. So as a leader, you want to make sure that you have those qualities. I think the other thing is that a good leader will have effective communication, not just when they're speaking, but they'll also have good communication written and understand that there's a certain way that you want to relay your message to your people. So that means, being aware of what you're putting into an email. It means little things like not typing in caps because that's yelling. You don't want to do that to your people and then try to turn around and act as though, we're going through a really exciting time frame within our organization, and we really love you guys and you're doing such a great job. You can't speak to people in a negative tone and then expect them to feel comfortable or to trust you later on. They may not tell you the impact that you've had, but being a leader is not just about a title. It's about what you say, and it's about what you do.
Thank you. All right, that's all the time we have, folks. Additional questions can be emailed to ritalum@rit.edu. As a reminder, we will send out the link to the recording of today's webinar. In addition, we will also include links to the various books and websites that Sharitta shared. And I'm going to ask her to advance her presentation one slide. Thanks to Sharitta for being with us today. I think she gave us a lot to think about and a lot to consider. So thank you again, Sharitta. And please consider joining us next week on Thursday, June 15th for our next webinar, How Deep Learning is Poised to Forever Change Your Life, with RIT alumnus and Assistant Professor Ray Pachuta. In this webinar, you will learn how artificial intelligence is transforming human-machine interactions and how artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning are being embedded into our lives. The future is now, folks, and this webinar is something you're not going to want to miss. Thank you again to everyone for being here. You can exit this webinar by closing your WebEx window, but please tell us what you thought of today's webinar by taking a very brief survey, which will pop up when you exit. Thanks again. Have a great day.